Lakho mnganwa Lakho mnganwa Lakho mnganwa Lakho mnganwa Lakho mnganwa Lakho mnganwa Oma timpolompo awungela wemnganwa
Hello molweni babukele emakhaya nakwindawo ngendaweni bukeleni kuzo siyanamkela kwisiqendu sethu saleveki senkqubo Yilungelo Lakho, it's your right. Igama lami nguSisanda JONAS. Kwalapha enkqubeni kaloku siza kunivulela iminxeba ukuba nani nithabathe inxaxheba. Inombolo zethu zithi 011-714-6918 okanye ke ku 011-714-6919. Ungasithumelela ke ne-email ku consumer@sabc.co.za. Ungasifumana ke na ku Facebook okanye ku Twitter. Prisoner rights groups are worried by the number of people who suffer wrongful imprisonment as a result of hiccups in the justice system. And one of those is a Soweto man who was sentenced to 12 years in prison for a crime he did not commit. But 29-year-old Luvo Nobhoza was lucky to escape jail after spending 4 years of his sentence. Now he is demanding a right to legal recourse after his wrongful imprisonment.
Sokuphele izinyanga ezimbili uLuvo ephumile ejele kodwa namanje usazama ukuqala impilo yakhe kabusha. Wavelelwa yishwa ngoJulayi ngonyaka ka2008 mhlazane kufika amaphoyisa ezihlelele nomfowabo emzini kababomncane wakhe. Ayesembopha ethi ambophela ukubamba inkunzi lapho yena wayengahlangani neze nezinto eziphathelene nobugebengu. Wahlala isikhathi eside ejele ngaphambi kokuthi aze agwetshwe iminyaka engama-20.
So ngivumeke ngene ephayibhokisini ngifike ke ngithethe ngene banguze imibuzo ngene bachaze babuza ukuthi ndoda ngasichaza na ukuthi ubushwe kanjani angibachazeleke konke istory esenzeka ukuthi ngaboshwa kanjani then emveni ngoba bathi ngomani ngithathe ngene kuleli box elikhulu ngene kuleli box elikhulu hayi banigwebeke bathi banigweba ngithoneni netyala ukuthi bangithoneni netyala kanjani ile nami ngisafuna ukuyazi angazi ukuthi kwenze kanjani bangigwebeke iminyaka e12 years ejele.
Kanti uthi akumngani namuntu ukuvalelwa ejele kakhulukazi njengoba yena wayeboshelwe into angayazi.
Sisiwami ibinzima kakhulu impilo kimi ngoba yafike yangishintshela impilo ngaphakathi. Ngoba kwayimpilo le ebengiyiphila ngaphakathi. Bekunzima kakhulu ngoba beke kufumanise ukuthola ukuthi noba ngihleli lapha ngingicabangi ngabantwana, umntwana lo enginaye apha ngaphandle. Nangempilo ebese ngiyiphila ngokuthi ke musejele sisiwami ngiyadinga ngisho nabantu abakusupportayo ngoba kaloku abantu baye babalekele ecaleni bangafuni ukusonethuzo ngoba usenkingeni.
Wathi ke ucela okungenani ukuya ejele elingakubo wabe ke uzibizela amanzi ngomsele.
Amaphoyisa hayi anibetha ke sisiwami. Bangilahla phansi ke banibetha ngamadonke impiri bangikhaba ngoba indlebe lezi zami njengibona ngosezi zalemali especially ngapha khona ukuva kakuhle ngoba zaye zaphuma ugazi ngangalimali nalapha kule ndawo lapha enhloko bengidonsa bengishayisa eminyango ngashayisa eminyango ngidonsa ingiphosa bathi uthapho pha iphosela khona la ngidonsa ngoshayisa eminyango.
Ngosizo alithola ngaphakathi kulabo ayehlala nabo wakwazi ukubhalelwa abe-VET Justice Project nabakwa Legal Aid South Africa wakwazi ke ukuthi icala lakhe liphenywe kabusha. Kanti okubuhlungu ukuthi uthi baningi abahlezi ngaphakathi ababoshelwe amacala abangawenzanga abahlala iminyaka neminyaka ejele.
Then ngezo sengibizwa ngimenyezo kuthiwa Luvo Nobhoza ayike ngisabele ukuthi ayike Lord thatha impahla zakho zonke iHigh Court ithumela ifax la ithi masukhiphela ngaphandle awunacala. Kwangathi badlala kimi ngaphinde ngabuza bathi hayi ndothatha impahla zakho ayike kwaba ukujabula kwami ngathatha ke impahla zami ke ngaphuma.
Nangoba ke esephumile ejele uLuvo impilo ayisenjengoba wayeyazi. Walahlekelwa umsebenzi wakhe kanti nemali yakhe ye-UIF akasakwazi ukuyithola njengoba bethi sesiside isikhathi. Usephila nje ukusizwa ubaba omncane wakhe naye ozitabaleselayo kanti akakwazi ngisho ukuhambisa indodakazi yakhe owayeyishiye inonyaka owodwa nje vo esikoleni. Kanti ke usisi omncane lo naye unawakhe amaphupho. Ufuna ukuba yini musukhulile?
Ngifuna ukuba isoja.
Why?
Ngifuna ukukhumbula abantu babeganga.
Owayesiboshwa kanti oseseyisishoshovu se-South African Prisons Organisations for Human Rights, umnumzane Miles BHUDU, uthi-ke kunzima kakhulu uma uzidlela imbuyangothi ukusheshe uthola usizo. Kodwa-ke babathumela kwi-Wits Law Clinic lapho abathola khona usizo.
We are not yet a banana republic. That is why the person needs to have the necessary information, and if they come to us, we can't do it ourselves, but we can refer him to the Wits Law Clinic and help him monitor the development of the case as it is being given the attention by the Wits Law Clinic. And I can assure you, the Wits Law Clinic had got a lot of successes. There is another organization called WITS Justice Project, which is also interested in looking into matters where people have spent some time in prison or arrested for crimes they never committed.
Noma ke kunjalo, uLuvo mningi imibuzo azibuza yona ngokuboshwa kwakhe, njengoba sithi sihlala eMzansi Afrika onenkululeko.
Yazi into engathanda ukuyenzeka, ngathanda ukuthi mina mhlambe benze bona ngendlela abazi ngayo ukuthi umuntu okulesimo lesi abamfake kuso bona benza kanjani na, ngoba ngazi ukuthi benza kanjani. Angeke ngisho ukuthi mina bangenzile, kodwa bona ngithanda ukuthi benze ngendlela eright le abazi ukuthi angeke lo bazongibopha bangihlala isikhathi esingaka 4 years 7 months onke ejele bengibophela into engayazi. Uzofumanisa ekugcineni ukuthi angiyazi after 4 years 7 months eSouth Africa ngesikhathi bathi kune democracy, emveni koba bazongikhipha ngilahlela ngaphandle banginikeze only 20 rand ukuthi mina ngigibele nge 20 rand suka from le lentukeni lokho ngizofika la eSoweto. Ngeke usuke eSoweto nge 20 rand uzofika la eSoweto. Kufanele kuba ndiyame ngikhongoze abantu ngicela abantwini.
Umnyango wozomthetho uthi uyabasiza abantu ababoshwe ngephutha, kodwa kunemigomo nemiyandela ekumele ilandeliwe. Laba ke abadla izambano laPonto bayakwazi ukusheshe bezisukumele ukuze bethole isiqephezelo, kanti ke laba ke ikati elilala eziko njengoluvo sebephephela kwi-Wits Law Clinic. Noma ke usuyitholile inkululeko yakho, akusoze kwashintsha ukuthi wake wavalelwa. Lokho ke kuyisilonda esingasoze saphola. Nompumelelo mthethwa, yilungelo lakho.
Sabulela kaloku for that background story that was produced by Mpumi Mthethwa. And now ukuncokola ke banzi ngalomba masamkelo advocate MTHUNZI MHAGA yena ke osisithethi sesebe lozobulungisa. We also welcome RUTH Hopkins yena oyintatheli ye-Wits Justice Project. Sibe naye no Golden Miles BHUDU owongamela umbutho olwela amalungelo amabanjwa iSouth African Prisoners Organization for Human Rights, SAPOHR ngamafutshane. Welcome to YilungeloLakho. Let me start off with you, Ruth. We've been seeing these stories now in the media of wrongful convictions. I mean, how big a problem is this in South Africa?
Well, that's very difficult to say because there are really no statistics on how many people have actually been wrongfully convicted. So when they've finished their whole legal process and they're innocent, right? So I mean, there's nothing really in the South African legal system to address that. So there are no statistics.
But Miles, what would you say is causing this?
Well, look, before I even go there, I don't want to dwell too much around my case, where I was arrested unlawfully, maliciously prosecuted, and illegally incarcerated for 5 months. I was sentenced for 8 years for a crime I never committed, and I'm still waiting for justice up to today. I'm not going to dwell around that case because I'm going to get justice in this country, because the country is not about to become a banana republic. What I want to talk about is there are 2 cases that is still vividly fresh in my head. The one of Julia Mashele, who spent 7 years as a waiting trial for a crime she never committed. She came out and then she smoked the peace pipe. After that, there was another guy that we tried to help via Julia Mashele called Cristiano Sergio. He also spent 8 years as a waiting trial, and he is still running around and want justice. And we in fact would try to help him as soon as we get the resources. And I got a letter from prisoners at Leocorp Maximum Prison who has formed an organization to try and speak out for themselves, which is an impossibility.
what is the cause? Kwenzeka ntoni intoni ethi hambe wrong ukwenzela abantu bazifumane be convicted?
You know, it's this fashion of arrest for the sake of arrest. Our police officers need to be trained. That it is not the way it used to be to just arrest people for the fun of it and push up numbers of people you have arrested for the month. And then it goes to a system where the senior prosecutor, who is also a relative of a magistrate at a particular court where I was found guilty, that they must be made to understand that this government is on its way to rectify the mistakes that they have inherited. They must stop just prosecute for the sake of prosecuting. And then thereafter, the correctional services sits with this burden where you get prisons overcrowded because it is a dumping ground. And you must have a minister who's an activist who must be there and say, look, I am not going to keep people here who are innocent. I don't care who says what.
Advocate, are we prosecuting people for the sake of prosecuting them?
Sanda, I think we're losing direction in our discussion. I think of importance is the fact that we don't have a statistical account of all these cases. And secondly, without that statistical account, the only statistical account we have are those of appeals and reviews, which I'm going to discuss later on. I must also admit that there's no system that's perfect in any country, because you must take into account the fact that when a crime is committed, police prosecutors are not there. They rely on what they are told by people who may have witnessed the incident, reduce that into writing and compile a police docket presented to prosecutors who scrutinize it and interrogate the evidence that they have presented before the courts. And the courts would then weigh all that's before them, give the accused a chance, and then convict. And the South African system, in the form of this hierarchy, has so many measures in place to ensure that there's no incidents of wrongful conviction. But obviously, we're dealing with human beings who are... Can I finish?
Okay.
Can I finish?
Okay, let's give him a chance.
I also
Let's give him a chance. Advocate.
I gave you a chance to talk, so I think it's important that I'm giving it. So what I'm saying to you, Susanna, is that I've admitted initially that there's no system that's perfect. But in the process, because we pick up that the system can be abused, we have measures in place to ensure that that does not happen.
All right, masibambe apho kwangoku ke make sithiye evenkileni kodwa ke phambi koko ithi ke ndinikhumbuze ukubana ningavali sezenu izimvo kule inkqubo ngositsalela umnxeba ke ku-011 714 6918 okanye ke ku-011 714 6919. Ungasithumelela ke ne-email ku-consumer@sabc.co.za. Catch us on Facebook or Twitter. Please join us after this. Sinamkele kwakhona babukeli usabukele inkqubo Yilungelo Lakho, it's your right. Sisazaza ngqo ke ku SABC 1 Mzansi for sure. Sitsalela umnxeba ke ku-011 714 6918 okanye ku-011 714 6919 ukuvakalisa ke izimvo zakho, okanye sithumele email ku-consumer@sabc.co.za or sifumane ku-Facebook okanye ke ku-Twitter. Ruth, you were disagreeing with Advocate there.
Yeah, respectfully disagreeing. No, I think that Advocate's right in saying that every legal system is imperfect, and I think you could even say every system designed by humans is necessarily flawed, right? Because humans make mistakes, and I think therefore it's necessary to build into this legal system a corrective mechanism. And if you look abroad, there are legal commissions that actually look at wrongful convictions, and they're comprised of legal experts who are not judges, so they're not part of the judiciary system, and so they will look at a case, reopen it, review the new evidence, and then send it back to a court. And I think that's a very sensible system, that you have a commission that's independent, not part of the judiciary, not part of government, you know, that assesses these cases, because mistakes are made. And you just need to address these mistakes.
Mr. BHUDU, we're saying there's no legal recourse.
No. Look, as I said earlier on, the advocate need not to be defensive here, because it's a system that has been inherited, and this system is in transformation, it's been transformed. And it doesn't belong to any one of us, it belongs to the people. We need to work very hard, and we're going to work very, very hard to have a perfect criminal justice system in the future. So we must come here, humble ourselves, and say what we've inherited was a terrible system. So having said that, though, there is this triple jeopardy. you get arrested unlawfully, you get malicious prosecuted, you go to prison, and then thereafter you get released, and you will have to wait for 10 years to get your criminal record expunged. For 10 years, what is that you must do? You know, unless you are connected, you will be in and out of prison. You understand? Even if you have spent 10 years and you haven't applied, you haven't applied for the expansion of your previous criminal record, and you go and look for a job, it will pop out, and immediately you will be dismissed like a dog.
Sinaye uNontuthuzelo from Cape Town. Nontuthuzelo, wamkelekile enkqubeni?
Mama,
Nontuthuzelo, ndizawucela uncimele iTV yakho mama. Hello mama, uyicimile iTV?
Mandiyicime
Nkosi kakhulu.
Ndabanjelwa ubrother bam uDumisani Ncamazana noSinikwe Ncamazana. uDumisani ubanjwe engumkhwetha. It was 2002 phazamo oluke namhlanje ngomso wayawubanjwa kusithiwa udubule ibhulu. Usetrongweni ngokathi for 11 years. That is painful because akazange ayenza ngiqonda ukhona into nokuluka namhlanje adubule umuntu kwanamhlanje. Dinalo ngxaki. Ithwani into enjena.
So uthathe amanyathelo anjani mama?
Kudala ngihlanyuka ngiyana-apla ngifika ukuthana ngoku abantu be-apla bebelapha kumendlini sizama lo mcimbi ndaba mandibheke phi usetrongweni mntakatatami wabanjwa engumkhwetha weluka namhlanje wabanjwa kusasa umboya ufoko ebhumeni lakhe kumngcela eMonti uDumisani kaNcamazana noSinikwe kaNcamazana.
Enkosi kakhulu ke mama uNontuthuzelo. Advocate?
I know about the case kaNcamazana. He was an applicator who was then released on presidential pardon when political prisoners were released. And then shortly after that, there was overwhelming evidence to the fact that he committed another offense whilst he was released on pardon. And then he went through the appeals and all that and lost the appeals. So I'm not sure exactly what Umama expects us to do, because he went through the system, he even appealed, he's still in jail. I, in fact, interviewed him in cases at TRC and that I was dealing with when I was still at the NPA.
Okay, ndizawucela sizame uxuba ke xa sithetha. Ruth, you are a reporter, you research these things, you talk to these people. Just share some of these stories.
Yeah, well, one of the most important cases we have is that of Fusi Mofokeng and Chokolo Mokoena, and they were arrested at the tail end of apartheid in 1992 during a township raid. And the brother-in-law of Fusi was involved in a self-defense unit, and there was a shootout with the police. And so there was a township raid, the police came in and they arrested everyone, and they arrested Fusi because he was at the wrong time, wrong place, and they arrested his best friend, Chokolo Mokoena. And so these two guys went to prison for a crime they did not commit. They're completely innocent. They were just at the wrong time at the wrong place. And then the case came before the TRC. The guys of the SDU unit, they were released because they confessed their crime. Fusi and Chokolo said, we can't confess a crime we never committed. So they went back to prison for 19 years. They're now out on parole, but they still have their criminal record. You know, they still, they have problems with finding a job, with traveling, etc. And they really want their honor and their name restored, you know, because they lost 19 years of their life, the most productive years of their lives.
Our case study, Luvo Nobhoza, ndiyazi uba wazi kakhulu with regards to that case. What can you tell us about that?
Yes, in fact, we tried during the apartheid regime criminal justice system. We wrote letters. We ended up referring the matter to her organization when her organization came up, and maybe with all the legal minds, with the financial material, human and infrastructural resources, they took the matter to an extent lapho bagcine sebabanceda ukuthi baphume, and kunjalo vele nathi siyavuma sombutho olwela amalungelo wamabanjwa ukuthi uFusi nomfowabo lento abayibhantitelayo for 19 years ngisho namanje abo-minister laba kade baloku basiphethe bekufuneka bekade bayilungisa lento le ngoba the buck stops with them. Bekufuneka bayingena lento le bathi awuthi sibheke ngoba abafowabo, but they ended up being in the army. Some of them are generals in the Air Force who were involved directly kulento le yenze ukuthi labafuthi sikhuluma nabo babhantite kangaka. It is unfair. Almost 20 years down the line, we're still talking about this thing. The minister could have taken this thing up himself because the buck stops with him and just say, "Boo, I'm the minister here and I want justice here. Finish and clear.
We'll talk more about that sinaye AMOS yena ke uphume Alexander. AMOS wamkelekile enkqubeni?
Sawubona sisi.
Hello tata.
Sawubona sisi.
Sawubona tata. Uyandiva?
Siyaphila na. Tata, sisi, nami ngaleyo nkinga leyo. So ngeke ngazama ukufanele uBHUDU ise lokho. Ngahluleka ukumthola.
Okay. Uyafuna uthetha naye namhlanje?
Ngifundisano?
Uyafuna uthetha notata uBHUDU? Hello tata.
Yebo.
Okay, akandiva kakuhle utata uAmos. Tata uAmos ingxaki yakho yintoni?
Ngilanga phandle kuzothi nami bebefuna ukungithathela indlu yabo. So nabafuna ukungithathela indlu bangiplantana umuntu ongazange ngimbulale. So bajika lapho babuye bathatha abantu ukuthi bayitoyitoye baze la endlini. Kanti kule case yami le kunephoyisa amaphoyisa ayinvolved kuyo le case. Funthatha le ndaba ethengisela umakhelwane wami.
All right, Tata Amos, the telephone line is really bad, but I hope we did get the gist of that. But we'll try and talk about that after this. For now, let's take another ad break. Welcome back to YilungeloLakho. It's your right. Sisathetha ke ngamalungelo abo bazifumana bengaphaya kwamasango entolongo bengenatyala. Intwendwe zami ke namhlanje nguadvocate MTHUNZI Maka yena ke usisithethi sesebe lezobulungisa sibe naye ke uRuth HOPKINS yena ke uphuma kwiWITS Justice Project, as well as Miles BHUDU ongumongameli ke we-South African Prisoners Organization for Human Rights. Why does this process take forever? I mean, in the case of Fusi as well as Chugulo, 19 years, that's such a long time.
Yeah, I mean, there are various reasons why establishing someone's innocence after the trial has been finalized. I mean, in Fusi's case, for example, we applied for the transcripts of his trial in 1992. I went myself to the High Court in Bloemfontein, and after months and months of correspondence and whatnot, we found out that there were 2 tapes. One of the tapes is missing. So there's no way to establish which evidence was led during the trial. So you can say, okay, this evidence was led, this was presented to the judge, but we have new evidence, right? So, I mean, it's incredibly difficult because the legal, the criminal justice system in itself is flawed. Missing transcripts is not it's not this once-off thing. It's a pervasive problem for a lot of prisoners write to us who say, for example, you know, I've been convicted of rape, however, you know, there was no DNA evidence, or there's DNA evidence of another man, for example, but then you need the transcripts even just to appeal, right? And a lot of transcripts just go missing.
We'll talk more about that. Snayo Andile from Cape Town. Andile wamkelekile enkqubeni?
Hello sis.
Hello tata, ndiyaphila nkosi kunjani?
Asikhona ngathi. Unoqonda mina ndanibangele icase ecaca intoba ndanibanje namabhanti nesitangu babephokhela into baziwe. Then icase yami yahamba about 2 years ba izogqithwa kulo nyaka. I think 2011. So it's like then and yeah, a police station, a court that is so a police station bando tata indo is 120. So once you police station, but man any proof, fine, that's an proof you buy case and you. Then about a police station before even those is that banjo nazo, but you will copy indo less down, come up in the south. What it can go akwalang into ba uthatha isihlangu namabhandi apho ubhalwe into ba icase restrictive ya uze neproof yoba neke uze nebhalwe yethi isihlangu namabhandi basinike police station. So ndaphela ekhaya abafuni noya bayazulisa bonke into but on mistake ingiyacutshwa ngudini nalinye yacupha
All right, Andile.
Okay, so ngifuna uqonda ngingenza njani but ke ndathi kuya the police station yenza affidavit inoba kudala ngisiza apha and then athi ndathi kanye ngqedwe. So la affidavit lapha kubo.
Andile wena police station ufuna ntoni kanye?
Ifuna izinto zami eziwakufanda izibile.
All right. Enkosi kakhulu ke Andile and has noba ke advocate MHAGA ungakwazi umncede uAndile kule meko.
Ngokwazi kwami xa umuntu evalelwa ngamapolisa kuthathwa ibhanti nezihlangu ezizama ukukhusela yena ziye zibhaliswe kwincwadi apho zonke izinto ezithathwa emntwini kwenza xa ekhululwa agqithe pha athathe zonke ezo andiqinisekanga uba kutheni lonto zingenzeki maybe miles anganayo
ayimzwanga kahle ukuthi uthini mfowethu man.
He wants his shoes, I think, but his belongings.
Well, that's personal property.
Yes.
He can go and get it there. If he can't get it, he can open a case of theft against whoever don't want to give him his stuff.
All right. So we'll just leave it there. Ruth, I wanted to come back to you. We were talking about these transcripts that are missing, documents that disappear. I mean, how do you then move forward?
It's incredibly difficult. It's really difficult. And I mean, we're faced now, I mean, it was such a setback to find out that not only have the paper transcripts gone missing, the actual tape has gone missing. So, I mean, that's the only thing we have in this case. So it's incredibly difficult. I mean, it's very, very difficult to move it forward. I mean, we're now going to go back, in this particular case, right, we're going to go back to the TRC hearings and see, you know, what we can establish from that, from those transcripts, because they're available. But it's incredibly difficult. I mean, we have a case of a guy who says he's innocent, that he was, you know, wrongfully convicted. It took him 8 years to get his transcripts. 8 years.
All right, let's leave it there. King from Rustenburg. King, wamkelekile nkubeni?
Hello, kunjani sis?
Ndiyaphila tata kunjani?
Ndiphilile sis. Ndine-point eziyi-4 ndifuna ukuziphakamisa apha. Sizazijolisa ngqo apha lo utata lo we-NPA.
Advocate MTHUNZI MHAGA.
Apha we-NPA apha emarikana bekuna. Sorry?
Thetha tata.
Ndithi sisi apha emarikana ngela xesha labo khona i-strike ke kwabantu abayi-270. Into enzekile into nakufika ecourt ke kwaphuma incwadi esuka kwa-National Prosecutor Authority apho isithi yiyo abantu abo basemarikana begwambile ngabo abantu ababulele abantu abayi-35. So iphinde ibuye into ethi sisi abona abantu abakhokhelayo isikakhulu abakhokhela apho ekulaleni kwabantu abasebenza ngabantu iyafana kwi-Department of Education. Ayomistake into yokuba umntu abanjwe achithe iminyaka 2 years 3 years esetrongweni and efika ubanjwe ngemistake ifana nento yokuba xa ndiyotesta kuzofumaniseka ndinegciwane kodwa loo nto leyo bengenakungqina ngaloo nto leyo. Ndicela mna into enzekayo uba urhulumente abantu aba abatshutshisi baye esikolweni bafundiswe kakuhle bakwazi umsebenzi wabo because into abayenzayo ayikho nyani.
Enkosi kakhulu ke tata. Advocate, the question was directed at you.
Impendulo yalo nto ilula gqithi kuba kaloku izityholo ezazibekiwe zemeto okanye zokubulala zabantu basemarikana zaye zarhoxiswa emveni koba uminister Radebe waye wangenelela esithi noko esi sigqibo siyakhwanqisa lilonke ke makarhoxiswe namatyala. So I think akukho ngxaki kule.
But something else that he touched on was education with regards to prosecutors.
I-prosecutors zethu zitshutshise abantu abaninzi gqithi. Uminister ngoku ugqibo uchaza ilist ye-3,968 abantu abafunyaniswe benamatyala e-fraud ne-corruption. Into ethetha uba sinoomakhwekhwetha ababetshutshisa 42 people kwimali engumyingo 5 million ubheka phezulu. So abatshutshisi bethu bayatrainwa, abatshutshisi oomantyi bethu bayatrainwa, ii-judges zethu ziyatrainwa. So le nto ayithethayo ingenzeka ke kwicase enye nezimbini kodwa ayithetha uba loo nto abatshutshisi bonke abangobantu bazingcaphephe okanye abafundi.
Alright, make sithethe ngeprocess umuntu ofuneka ilandele.
Sisanda into apha esingakhange sikwazi ufikelela kuyo inye yinto yoba xa ngaba uye wabanjwa and you are convicted and then you go to jail and then eventually it transpires into yoba you were wrongfully convicted, uyakwazi uba ngaba ufake isibheno, le nto kuthiwa si-appeal in English. Emveni kufake isibheno lo bungqina butsha buzama ukukhupha etyaleni i-court kukho section 316 subsection 5 ethi abo bantu bangakwazi uba uze obo bungqina buye kulaa court yayigwebile ibumamele ibujonga uba butsha nabo ubungqina ongazange buvezwe ngaphambili ukwenzela uba ngaba bungqina obunjalo loo nkundla ye-appeal izawuyijonga ijonge noba laa nkundla ibixoxa elityala ibujongisisile nobo bungqina, after which that conviction will be set aside and that person, there's an order to liberation warrant to the correctional services for that person to be released. In most cases people are not aware that they've got that legal avenue to explore, they rush to judicial pardon, the rush to expungement of the criminal record without that conviction against that person being set aside. And there is that legal avenue in the Criminal Procedure Act which gives those people that right. Secondly, kukho into yoba uba ngabe ugwetywe 3 months ubheka phezulu okanye 6 months ubheka phezulu, lo case yakho iya kwi-automatic review. Ii-judges zizawuthatha yonke loo nto zijonge uba ugwetywe kakuhle na, ukwenzela uba ungathi kanti ugwetywe wrong.
Alright, sinaye ke uSabelo from Newcastle. Sabelo ukhona emnxebeni?
Yebo, sisinjani?
Ndiyaphila tata, kunjani?
Ngikhona. Ngisacela ukubuza lana uma ulokhuzana uboshwe ngongasikhona and waphuma watholakala ukuthi awunalo icala, bakwazi kanjani ukuthi bekusize ngoba manje angithi awusawuthola umsebenzi ngaphandle mawukuthi uboshwe ukwaboshwa before because usunecala mawukuthi mhlawumbe uthola umsebenzi elsewhere.
Alright, enkosi kakhulu ke tata. Sizawuzama ukuphendula ke, but for now let's take another ad break. We'll be right back. Molweni kwakhona babukeli, samkele ke nabo ke basanda ukungena umba wethu. Kaloku namhlanje ngamalungelo abo bathi bazifumane bengaphaya kwezitshixo zentolongo bengenamatyala. Iindwendwe zethu ke ngu-Advocate MTHUNZI Maga, usisithethi sesebe lezobulungisa, sibe no-RUTH HOPKINS yena ke uyintatheli ephaya kwiziko i-WITS Justice Project. Sibena ke no Golden Miles BHUDU ongumongameli we-SAPO, umbutho ke olwela amalungelo abo babotshiweyo. Phambi koba siye evenkileni besinayo ikhola yethu uSabelo, naye bekhalela into yokubana he's been wrongfully convicted, une-criminal record, ngoku akakwazi nofumana umsebenzi.
No, i-criminal record lam selisuliwe, sengamane ngikhulume nje ngokuthanda.
Sithetha ngosabelo, masizaphendula uSabelo.
Awuthi ngithi ngosabelo kunzima Sabelo mfuthu lapho uhleli khona, ngoba into eyaziwe ukuthi wena uphuma ejele une-criminal record, kuyofuneka ume kuze kuphela u-10 years. Masithi wagwetshwa for i-rape or i-murder or i-child molesting, kungenzeka ukuthi nale criminal record yakho ingasulwa mfowethu. Thina saz drafta i-proposal sayithumela ku-Department of Justice and Constitutional Development ukuthi sifuna ukubanceda abafowethu nabodadewethu kwaba intanga zimuka nomoya. Sayithumela manje i-proposal kulotho ukuthi basincede ngeimali, nkosi mabafaka imali bazobona ukuthi lento singabanceda kanjani, ngoba i-Justice Department nayo ifuna ukuthi ithole i-pressure ebuya ngaphandle. For as long as thina njengoba sihleli la singanawo ama-resources, le ndaba soloku sizikhuluma nje zingapheli. And indaba kaSabelo inzima ngoba naku uphuma ejele not as a person that has been acquitted, uphuma ejele yena uthi lento akayenzanga. The criminal record izaloku ihlala ikhona unless ayo apply amele i-10 years. Into ebuhlungu kabi.
Advocate, I want you to come in here, but for now sinayo NTOMBIFUTHI from KZN. NTOMBIFUTHI, wamkelekile enkqubeni? NTOMBIFUTHI? NTOMBIFUTHI ukhona?
Yebo ngikhona, nginenkinga nginoba wami oboshwe nge-6 zikaJuni. Yebo ngikhona.
Ewe thetha mama.
Nginenkinga nginoba wami oboshwe nge-6 zikaJuni odonsa 15 years. Yebo nginoba wami odonse 15 years nge-6 zikaJuni.
Ewe
ngifuna ukubuza ukuthi aphile ngabe yimali yini la ngifuna ukuthi kuba ke uqala ukuphinde futhi uliphinde lelicala ngoba isibamba sisona isana.
All right, enkosi kakhulu ke mama. I know we don't have much information on this case, but she wants to know and appeal. What should she do?
Uba ngaba kana imali, uminister uyonyusile imali i-budget ngoku-legal aid to 1.259 billion klonyaka, ukwenzela uba abo bantu banamatyala anjengalo usisi noSabelo uSabelo ingxaki yaminye into yoba uthi akanatyala ngoku sephumile ejele waye wadonza wathini. Into ethetha uba ke ngoku yena makaze nobungqina obutsha obungazange buvele enkundleni obuthi akanatyala, ukwenzela uba lizomanyelwa obubungqina. Ingenzeka into yoba ii-judges zivumelana naye zithi ngobungqina butsha uza nabo, ngoko ke lingatshe kuthiwe awunatyala, ukwenzela uba angayi kwakule route yobafuna be-criminal record yakhe isuke.
Is it possible to find yourself in this situation? Because now you're saying you must bring more evidence. Is it possible that somebody doesn't have more evidence, but they know they did not commit any crime? How do we move forward?
You see, the problem is that, SISANDA, most people abasejele, none of them will ever admit to having committed an offense. Very few will do that. But those cases of wrongful conviction, where, for example, a person is falsely accused of rape, and then the complainant comes forward and says, MTHUNZI, you did not rape me, it's because I was caught by my husband or something like that. There is a legal route for that, where that lady's affidavit must be brought forward to that court which convicted you and be heard and tested. And once it's tested and there's veracity to it and there's merit to it, that person, the judges, where the person would have appealed, because illegal aid was no banceda futhi bangabhatali ne-cent, after which then the court will order intoba laa mntu must be find not guilty, record a not guilty finding, and then order a liberation warrant, laa mntu akhulule ejele. Akho nento ye-criminal record engenayo ne-expungement ke kulo case.
All right, Ruth, I'll get your thoughts on this. For now, we do have Isaac from Gauteng. Isaac, wamkelekile nkubeni?
Nna ke nna e buka ba ke ne ke tlhaela ke problem ke le kwa nna ke robetsa fitlhe maphodisa ba tsamaya le di-complaint.
Awuvakali tata?
Okay, athi ngifumele ngaphansi. Okay.
Hello tata, i-TV yakho, is it on?
Ke ne ke tlhaela ke problem ke le kwa nna tlhaela maphodisa tsamaya le di-complaint ke tlo find out ka thola case ke a rape and nna ka etsa bona. And the complainant tse tsone di ne fitlha ba di botsisa motho la motsebana ba ra o a seno intentse or ba nne ka nna le ba mpitsa mzeka bona ba fitlha ba mze o mangara nna ke nna as ba fitlha fela ba fitlha di complain ke na fela ya ra motho na re mtseba bona after mo ke tlo find out ke tlo botsa mshimena ka nixdor ba tfaso ba romeletse.
All right, Tato Isaac, I think we've lost him there. I'm sorry, I have to admit, I didn't understand what he had to say. You didn't get it. Okay, let's move on. It's language barrier for me. But
what I want to say, you know, my honorable learned friend here, advocate, has got the luxury of understanding the procedures, how it works from when you're arrested, being prosecuted, and in prison. The majority of the people of this country don't have that information. You know why? It hasn't come out of their own making. They are ignorant, they are negligent, they are incompetent, not out of their own making. It was planned to be like that. Now we have tried for years as an organization ukuthi uhulumende akasichase ngeimali, so that we start educating our people from day one how it works. Kwaba intanga zimuka nomoya, but we are not going to get tired. We are still going to knock on the government door, knock on international donors to say, fund us so that we start a massive education awareness project, how the system works from day one up to when you are arrested, charged, prosecuted, and after imprisonment. Organjan advocate.
I agree with Miles, because we need to enhance educational campaigns zethu. Abantu bakuthi abawazi umthetho and abayazi into xa ibanjiwe umuntu wazi into bandibajiwe ndikwekiwe ndizawusenda idonse, that's it. That's why at the Department of Justice we have educational programs that are on radio, community radio stations, speaking the language that people understand. We have community outreach programs where even the minister goes to the communities lalini awufundisa abantu. We even go to schools. Now that's not enough, I agree. We need to go to prisons as well. We need to partner with civic organizations to ensure abantu know their rights. So I agree with Miles in as far as that is concerned, but there are legal remedies and avenues for people to explore. But it's just that they are not aware.
And vanga kuhle ngathi sinayeke umbongeni from KZN.
Yebo.
Hello tata.
Yebo njani ma?
Ndiyaphila tata, kunjani?
Yebo ma unjani?
Ndiyaphila tata, ungacima i-TV yakho ne?
Okay ma, ngayicisha ma. Okay mfethu, nenkinga nami la. Wathi ngo-2004 yabo ngathenga ushize esitolo eSpar yabo, ngaphuma ngudla, ngafike ngashaya ithini ngudla, ngathi mase ngiphume eminyango la ngibambe kodwa sengishayile sebengishayile thini bangibuyisa ngaphandle islip sesilahlekile. Emva lokho bangithatha ngaboshwa basebethi bangigweba u5 years bangigwebela ngaphandle. So ke manje ngahlala-ke manje sengihamba ngifuna umsebenzi kuthiwa ne-criminal record angisawuthola umsebenzi, manje ngifuna ukwazi ukuthi ngingalungiseka kanjani lento.
All right, tata, sizawuzama uphendula umbuzo wakho. For now, let's take our last ad break. Hlala kunye nathi. Welcome to our last segment, and we continue with our discussion. Ruth, let me come to you and look at the legal remedies and whether they're effective.
Yeah. Well, I think there are various remedies if you're wrongful convicted and you're in prison. You can apply for a presidential pardon based on the Constitution or on the Criminal Procedure Act. And then there's another 316, Section 316 that the advocate mentioned. they're okay, but they're not really that effective because A, there are no known cases as far as I know, and B, they involve the administration, so the president or the minister. And I think what this legal system needs is this independent commission that looks at these cases. And if you look at the UK, they have the Criminal Review Cases Commission. And there was a very famous case of the Birmingham six people who were wrongfully arrested and convicted for IRA bombings. They were completely innocent. And so the case was reopened and they found that the police had tampered with evidence. You know, and that happens in this country. It happens all over the world. And what you need is, you need to take a cool look at it. And what you need is to improve the legal system. And so I'd say, you know, we need a similar commission that just takes a rational look at the evidence.
All right, we do have a PHUMLA on the line. PHUMLA, wamkelekile Nkubeni?
Yebo sisi njani?
Yaphila mama kunjani?
Yaphila. Ngilalela la sisi, ngicela ukukhuluma no ubhutilo, ngicela ukubhekisa kubhutilo ubhudu.
All right mama.
Yeah, nginobhuti abafowethu abayi2 ababoshiwe. Omunye uselogogo, omunye ula eSun City. Baboshwa ngo-2006. Kusho ukuthi kwatholakala kwakuyofunwa omunye, kwatholakala ukuthi balapho nabo kwasebeboshwa bonke lapho. Since beboshiwe ngaleso sikhathi leso siyazama kodwa akuzameki, nabo bayazama ukwenza i-appeal. Mara makufanele ukuthi kuyiwe court kuba kushonele nale ingaziphumeleli indaba yabo. Manje bengisacela ukubuza kuye ubhuti loyo uMiles ukuthi njengoba ethi kune organization abayenzayo lapha eLokop, ingabe mhlawumbe ihamba kanjani, singamthola kanjani?
All right. Onkosi kakhulu ke mama, and I hope our producers can take your numbers so that Mr. BHUDU can handle this situation outside of this program, and these numbers should be on the screen now. All right, let's talk about the situation, because I know that you very much encouraging the empowerment of prisoners when it comes to this situation.
In fact, the topic here, we're talking about guys who are in prison for crimes they've not committed. There are those who have committed the crimes and they know that they must do the time. This is how it works. You know what I'm saying? And we're not coming in, we soft on crime and criminals. If you commit a crime, you will do the time and that's it. But we will make sure that if you do the time, you must come out being a responsible, useful and a law-abiding citizen. In Leeuwkop, inmates became so desperate. They formed an organization called Asiphilisane. The founder member is Elijah Skosana, prison number 2040480035 at Leeuwkop maximum prison. And they sent us this letter to say, Miles, please help us as an organization so that we could maybe convey this message to our government that they must come and help us here so that we get justice at the end of the day. But those are for guys who hasn't committed a crime. If you committed a crime, my brother, you know, would do the time like I used to do my time for a crime I've committed during the heydays of apartheid. That's how the cookie crumbles.
All right. All right, now Masbulele from Eastern Cape. Masbulele Lukwana? Masbulele? We are running out of time. Just to wrap up briefly, what is it that you want to say to us?
Well, I think that people should realize that there are probably hundreds, if not thousands, of people in South African jails who are absolutely not supposed to be there, and something should be done. They should address this issue.
All right, advocate.
I want to say, we always say you rather acquit a guilty man than send an innocent man to jail, which is why appeal process here to just last year, out of 2,068 appeals, 704 were dismissed, 394 were successful, which means these measures in place to ensure that wrongful convictions are corrected are working and effective through review and appeal. It's just that we need to educate our people.
And do people get compensated once this whole process is done with?
If you win an appeal, unless there was malicious prosecution and there was wrongful arrest, you can explore that avenue. You can even go to legal aid, have them sued, and then you get your money or damages out of it.
Thank you very much. And now we've come to the end of today's show. Masibane kwakhona ke kulo lwesihlanu ozayo for another live Consumer Affairs TV show. Ukubukela ke impinda zethu sale inkqubo of YilungeloLakho apha kum SABC1 MTHUNZI for sure on Mondays from 9:30 in the morning to 10:30. Well, from me, thank you very much to our guests for your time. My name is SISANDA JONAS, and from me and the entire team, it's goodbye.
YilungeloLakho